Yes, Einstein did hide discoveries that could rewrite reality, and yes, they were buried by the same government that made him a hero. But here's what nobody talks about. If Einstein's hidden research was so dangerous, why did the FBI wait until 3 months before his death to act? What took them so long? And more importantly, what did Einstein discover in those final months that was so terrifying? They're still hiding it 68 years later. I'm about to share with you information that took me 3 years to piece together from declassified documents, Princeton archives, and FBI files that most people will never see. I've spent over 1,000 hours researching what really happened during Einstein's final years, and what I discovered will change how you think about reality forever. In the next 20 minutes, you'll discover exactly what Einstein found that scared the establishment so much. You'll learn the quantum consciousness principles he explored that could literally change your personal reality. And by the end, you'll understand why this knowledge threatens traditional power structures and how you can use these insights to transform your own life in ways that seem impossible. But first, let me show you the timeline they don't want you to see. March 14th, 1879. Einstein is born. 1905, he publishes Relativity and becomes famous. 1933, he moves to Princeton and officially begins working on unified field theory. But here's where the story gets interesting. 1945, the atomic bomb drops. Einstein, who helped create it, immediately starts speaking out against nuclear weapons. The government doesn't like this. 1950, Einstein begins what he calls his most important work, not physics, something else, something he only discusses in private letters with a select group of scientists. 1952, FBI surveillance on Einstein intensifies. They're not worried about his politics anymore. They're worried about his research. January 1955, 3 months before his death. Something happens that changes everything. Einstein becomes obsessed with what he calls the relationship between consciousness and quantum reality. 2 months later, Einstein's safe is emptied by federal agents. The contents remain classified today. April 18th, 1955. Einstein dies. His final words are spoken in German to a nurse who doesn't understand the language. Those words are lost forever. But what Einstein was working on isn't lost, it's just hidden. Welcome to Hidden Architects, where we decode power's hidden architecture. I'm your guide into the secret blueprints that the most powerful people in history have used to reshape reality itself. And Einstein? He accidentally stumbled upon the ultimate architecture. The quantum blueprint that shows exactly how consciousness constructs what we call the real world. Now here's where this gets controversial, and I want you to think carefully about what I'm about to propose. Einstein once said, "Reality is merely an illusion, albeit a very persistent one." He also said, "The distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion." But what if Einstein were alive today? What if he could see the neuroscience research coming out of Stanford, the consciousness studies at Princeton, the meditation research at Harvard Medical School? I believe Einstein would make a statement that would shock the scientific establishment. He would say that consciousness isn't produced by the brain. Consciousness is the fundamental fabric of reality, and the brain is simply the receiver. Think about it. Einstein spent his final decades trying to find a unified field theory, a single principle that connects all physical forces. But what if he was looking in the wrong direction? What if the unified field isn't a physical force at all, but consciousness itself? If Einstein were working today, I believe he would argue that quantum mechanics isn't weird because particles behave strangely. Quantum mechanics seems weird because we're seeing consciousness interacting with itself at the most fundamental level of reality. When quantum physicists talk about the observer effect, they usually mean measuring devices. But Einstein, with his intuitive genius, might look at today's research and say something radical. He might say that every conscious observation literally creates the reality being observed, not just in quantum labs but in everyday life. Imagine Einstein reviewing the placebo effect research, 40 to 60% healing rates just from belief. Einstein might argue that this isn't psychology, it's physics. Consciousness directly influencing physical reality through quantum field interactions. Or consider the research on meditation changing brain structure, not just function, but actual physical structure. Einstein might propose that focused consciousness doesn't just calm the mind, it literally reshapes matter at the quantum level. Here's where Einstein would probably get himself in trouble with modern academia, just like he did with quantum theory in the 1920s. I think Einstein would argue that what we call manifestation, visualization, or the law of attraction isn't mystical nonsense. It's basic physics that we haven't figured out how to measure yet. Einstein believed deeply in the mathematical elegance of the universe. If he saw today's research on intention, attention, and outcome correlation, he might propose that consciousness operates according to precise mathematical principles we just haven't discovered. He might even suggest that human beings are walking quantum computers, constantly processing probability waves and collapsing them into specific realities through the act of conscious attention. Now, I know this sounds incredible. Many of you are probably thinking, there's no way Einstein would say something that speculative. But remember, this is the same man who told us that time is relative, that space can bend, and that mass and energy are interchangeable. Ideas that seemed impossible until they were proven, and just like his relativity theories faced massive resistance from the scientific establishment, Einstein's consciousness theories would face the same institutional pushback today. Why? Because if consciousness directly influences physical reality, it undermines the materialist worldview that dominates modern science. It would mean that individuals have far more power over their circumstances than we're typically taught. It would mean that the line between psychology and physics is much blurrier than anyone wants to admit. Einstein once said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge." If he were alive today, seeing the research on neuroplasticity, quantum biology, and consciousness studies, I believe he would say that imagination isn't just more important than knowledge. Imagination is the fundamental creative force of reality itself. But here's the question that would obsess Einstein if he were alive today, and it's going to make some of you very uncomfortable. If consciousness really does influence reality at the quantum level, then why do some people seem to have so much more influence over circumstances than others? Einstein was fascinated by power dynamics, though most people don't know this. He watched Hitler rise to power. He observed Stalin's control over the Soviet Union. He witnessed how certain individuals could shape the beliefs and behaviors of millions. If Einstein was studying this today, with our understanding of quantum fields, mirror neurons, and collective consciousness research, I believe he would propose something that would terrify political establishments worldwide. He would say that influence isn't just about charisma or resources. Influence operates through what he might call quantum resonance fields. Think about this. When you're around certain people, you feel differently, not just emotionally, but physically. Your energy changes, your thinking shifts, your possibilities seem to expand or contract. Einstein, with his field theory background, might argue that highly influential people aren't just good communicators. They're generating quantum resonance fields that literally synchronize other people's consciousness with their own. This isn't metaphysics. We can measure it. Heart coherence research shows that people in the same room literally synchronize their heartbeats and brain waves. Mirror neuron research proves we unconsciously copy the neural patterns of people around us. But Einstein would probably take this further. He might propose that master influencers throughout history weren't just naturally gifted. They discovered how to amplify their quantum resonance field. Napoleon's presence on a battlefield changed everything, not just strategically, but energetically. Soldiers fought differently when he was there. Einstein might argue that Napoleon had learned to project a field of confidence and possibility that others could literally feel. Gandhi's influence over millions of people wasn't just moral authority. When Gandhi spoke, something shifted in the collective consciousness of India. Einstein, who actually corresponded with Gandhi, might suggest that Gandhi had mastered what we could call quantum compassion, a resonance field based on unified consciousness rather than dominance. Now here's where this gets controversial, and I want you to really think about this. If influence operates through quantum resonance fields, then traditional power structures based on force, money, and institutional authority become secondary to consciousness-based influence. This would mean that an individual who masters quantum consciousness techniques could potentially influence reality on a scale that rivals governments and corporations. Einstein might argue that this is why certain information about consciousness has been historically suppressed, not because it's false, but because it's too powerful. Imagine if millions of people understood that their collective consciousness directly influences economic systems, political outcomes, and social structures. What happens to traditional forms of control when people realize they're not powerless observers, but active creators of reality? Einstein, with his pattern recognition genius, might look at history and identify what we could call quantum consciousness pioneers. Jesus of Nazareth, a carpenter's son who influenced 2 billion people across 2,000 years. No army, no wealth, no institutional power, but an unprecedented ability to generate what Einstein might call a love resonance field that continues to influence consciousness today. Buddha, a prince who gave up everything and somehow created a philosophical framework that transformed the consciousness of entire civilizations. Einstein might suggest that Buddha discovered the mathematics of inner peace and taught others how to access that same quantum state. Even modern figures. Steve Jobs didn't just make products, he created what his biographer called a reality distortion field. People around Jobs started believing that impossible things were achievable. Einstein might argue that Jobs had unconsciously mastered quantum influence principles. If Einstein were alive today, I believe he would be deeply concerned about how these principles are being used. He might look at social media algorithms and recognize them as crude attempts to influence quantum resonance fields on a mass scale. Instead of person-to-person field generation, we now have artificial systems designed to synchronize millions of people's consciousness with specific emotional states. Fear, outrage, desire, inadequacy, all broadcast simultaneously to billions of minds. Einstein might argue that this represents the weaponization of quantum consciousness principles without the wisdom or ethics to use them responsibly. And this brings us back to why we call ourselves hidden architects. Throughout history, the individuals who've had the most profound impact on human civilization, Einstein included, seem to understand something about the relationship between consciousness and reality that the rest of us miss. They weren't just smart or lucky. They were accessing what Einstein might call the consciousness field, the underlying intelligence that connects all things. Napoleon's strategic genius, Tesla's inventive insights, Gandhi's influence over millions, Einstein's own theoretical breakthroughs. What if these weren't isolated cases of exceptional individuals, but examples of people who learned to align their consciousness with the deeper patterns of reality? If Einstein were alive today, I believe he would be working on the ultimate question. Not just how consciousness observes reality, but how consciousness architects reality. And that's exactly what we explore here at Hidden Architects. Throughout history, there have been individuals who understood these consciousness reality principles and used them to shape civilization. Some used them for human flourishing, others used them for control and manipulation. But most people have been completely unaware that these dynamics even exist. If Einstein were working with us today, I believe he would say that the next stage of human evolution isn't technological, it's consciousness-based. The question isn't whether these quantum influence fields exist. The research strongly suggests they do. The question is whether we're going to allow them to be monopolized by power structures that don't have humanity's best interests at heart, or whether we're going to democratize this knowledge and teach people how to generate positive resonance fields that elevate collective consciousness rather than manipulate it. That's the choice Einstein would want us to make. And that's the mission of Hidden Architects. But Einstein's story is just the beginning. What I've shared with you today is only the first piece of a much larger puzzle. Next week, I'm releasing the second part of our quantum conspiracy trilogy. We'll explore how Werner Heisenberg's secret correspondence with Einstein in 1953 revealed the existence of what they called the consciousness cartel, a group of scientists and government officials who have been actively suppressing quantum consciousness research for over 7 decades. You'll discover the classified experiments they've been conducting, the techniques they use themselves, and most importantly, how their own research validates everything Einstein theorized about consciousness and reality. Then, in part 3, we'll expose how Niels Bohr and the Copenhagen School weren't just interpreting quantum mechanics. They were deliberately creating a version of physics that would hide consciousness-reality interaction from the general public. By the end of this trilogy, you'll have the complete picture of humanity's greatest conspiracy, the deliberate suppression of our quantum consciousness capabilities. If this information resonates with you, if you're ready to decode the hidden architecture of power and reality, then you belong with the Hidden Architects community. Subscribe to Hidden Architects right now, because you're about to become part of something extraordinary. We're not just another YouTube channel. We're a community of individuals who refuse to accept the official narratives about reality, consciousness, and human potential. Every week we decode another piece of power's hidden architecture. We reveal the suppressed discoveries and the techniques that the elite have used for centuries to shape reality according to their will. But more than that, we show you exactly how to apply these revelations in your own life. Hit that notification bell because the Quantum Conspiracy Trilogy is just the beginning. We have investigations planned that will expose the hidden architects behind every major shift in human consciousness throughout history. Tesla's energy suppression, Gandhi's consciousness warfare tactics, Napoleon's reality distortion techniques, the Vatican's secret consciousness research. All of it connected by the same quantum principles Einstein explored. And if you want to go deeper, if you're ready to start applying these quantum consciousness insights in your own life, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. Because I'm planning an exclusive deep dive series just for the Hidden Architects community, where we'll explore the practical applications of everything Einstein theorized about consciousness and reality. This won't be surface-level content. We'll dive into the actual techniques and protocols that combine Einstein's theoretical insights with modern neuroscience research, and how you can use them to architect your own reality. But remember, this information threatens established power structures. The people in control don't want you to understand your true capabilities. By joining Hidden Architects, you're not just subscribing to a channel, you're joining a quiet revolution, a movement of individuals who are reclaiming the quantum consciousness knowledge that is rightfully ours. Welcome to the Hidden Architects. Let's decode reality together. I'm your guide, and I'll see you in the next investigation.